afternoon. My name is Molly Hands, and I am the prosecutor on this case working with the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. I am glad to be here representing the people on this unfortunate case. The case you're about to see today is the State of New York versus Elliot N. Mr. N is being charged with one count of driving under the influence of alcohol. The state would expect to show that on Saturday, January 8, 2022, the defendant Elliot N was operating a vehicle at a time which his blood alcohol level was over the state's maximum limit of 0.08. Based on the given evidence of him seen sitting in the car on the edge of a private driveway after a suspicious vehicle complaint from the homeowners, Officer Derek Robinson was called to the scene and asked Mr. N to comply with a standard field sobriety test. At that point, Mr. Robinson asked for a breathalyzer test. Mr. N blew twice into that machine. Both times were successful, recording a blood alcohol level consistent of 0.30. After this advancement, Mr. Robinson then placed Mr. N under arrest for a DUI. Mr. N was read his Miranda warnings and the New York State implied consent notice, which I will cover more later in the case. This is a case about a man who drove at a level of intoxication so high he put not only himself, but those in the Peekskill community of which he was driving in at a great risk. At the conclusion of this case, and after you hear all of the evidence, we are confident that you will return with a verdict of guilty. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I represent Elliot Anton, who has been accused by the state of driving under the influence of alcohol. And you know, I listened to the prosecutor's opening statement this afternoon, and I couldn't help but think about it. There's a whole other side of the story that you guys haven't gotten the opportunity to hear. They omitted all the important evidence that they have a lack of, a testimony from my client, any witnesses, or even any evidence of my client actually operating a vehicle. That evidence and those problems are crucial to the case here. They are crucial to whether or not the prosecution can prove the charges against Mr. Anton beyond a reasonable doubt, and crucial to the decision that you must make at the end of the case. In this case, you're going to see how the trooper of the case made statements that he locked himself into. You're going to see how the prosecution's argument against a DUI case without any concrete evidence of Mr. N being pulled over by the officer for any form of reckless driving is just not justifiable. It's a case relying on a breathalyzer test, completely. Since again, Officer Robinson did not witness Mr. N operating the vehicle. There was no blood or urine sample taken at the station or any nearby medical center. Thank you.
I'm going to be bringing Officer Robinson, the state trooper, who was the one at the scene with Mr. N, to the stand. Hello, Mr. Robinson. I see you're in uniform. How long have you served as a state trooper?
About 3 years.
And where did you receive your education in the police force?
The New York State Police Academy.
Now, when you arrived at the scene on January 8th, were you in a marked or unmarked car?
Marked.
Okay. And why did you believe Mr. N to be intoxicated when you did arrive at the scene?
I had opened the door and the car smelled heavily of alcohol. There was an empty beer bottle in the footwell of the passenger seat, and I saw Mr. N to have bloodshot eyes and bad coordination as well as slurred and loud speech.
And what did Mr. N say to you when he opened the door?
He was crying on his phone. He put it down immediately, but put his hands up screaming, "Please don't kill me. I can't drive. Michael is on his way to get me." And then he told me he had been at a bar in Montrose.
Okay.
With that, did you see Mr. N actually operate the vehicle?
No, I did not.
Where was Mr. N sitting in the car when you opened the door?
The driver's seat.
I see. Were his keys in the ignition?
Yes, his keys were in the ignition with the car in park.
After that, did you proceed to perform a standard field sobriety test?
Yes, after I saw the beer bottle in the footwell, I had Mr. Anton get out of the car. I had him leave the car and began to carry out the standard field sobriety test.
And what were the results of this test?
Mr. N was unable to walk in a straight line. He was unable to keep eye contact with the pen I placed in front of him, and he blew a 0.30% blood alcohol both times I administered the breathalyzer test.
Did you perform this test again at the station when you took him in after arrest?
Yes, I did.
And were the results the same?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, what kind of road is Blueberry Avenue, Mr. Robinson?
Blueberry Avenue is a cul-de-sac.
Is it a flat cul-de-sac?
No, sir, it's sloped.
And you still administered a straight line test then?
Yes, I did.
Would this not hinder the ability of my client to properly walk in a straight line if he is walking on a sloped surface?
No. The slope of the road is more prominent towards the bottom of the road. I had Mr. Anton walk horizontal
yes, sir.
at the top of the street, which is more equitable for a straight line test.
And what were the lighting conditions of the standard field sobriety test?
There was the light from my headlights on the trooper car, which I had facing the same direction as Mr. Anton.
And where did you hold the pen when performing the horizontal line test?
Approximately 15 inches from Mr. Anton's nose, sir.
Let's see.
I would like to thank you guys again. You know, there are several ways to charge and accuse a DUI, but this particular DUI was only charged one way, and that one way doesn't talk about whether or not my client was safe to drive, but only whether or not, beyond a reasonable doubt, that my client had actual intent to drive his vehicle that night. Now, this case relies solely upon an assumption that my client had the intent to drive that night and that my client was intoxicated. The only proof of intoxication the prosecution has towards my client is his blood alcohol level, which is commonly wrong and is affected by various factors like metabolism and the temperature of breath. Now, of the prosecution and any other evidence of a blood or urine sample from the night, we may be able to look deeper into their whole argument towards intent to drive, but that was simply not the case.
I agree with the defense in that this is a very unusual case. The bottom line in this case is that Mr. Anton must have been driving in order to get from the bar he told Officer Robinson he was at in Montrose to the random cul-de-sac in Peekskill that he was at. It wasn't a cul-de-sac he resided on. In fact, his address is in Mount Kisco, 20 minutes away from the bar he was at and in the opposite direction of where he ended up in Peekskill. Now, one thing that the defense conveniently left out of his little speech was the fact that we performed a standard sobriety test both at the scene and at the station, both coming back with the same results. He failed the straight line test, he failed the horizontal line test. Yes, the breathalyzer is our main point of evidence. However, he did pass that with a .30 both times he blew into the machine, and it came back as the same. Thank you so much.